There are several practices for fighting with nulls. One of them is the time-honored Null Object Pattern. This is one of the easiest ways to represent nulls. The Null Object Pattern is about creating a special case for each type in order to represent its null state. Here you can see the diagram, which represents the design of this pattern. We can imagine almost any class as a real entity, which potentially can be null. Our goal is to eliminate nulls when working with this reference type. In order to do that, we need to extract a base class, which is represented on this diagram as an abstract entity. Please notice that we extracted the API of the real entity, which is represented by a method named DoSomething. After that, we can roll out a null entity, which inherits from that base class. The implementation of the DoSomething method will be empty in this case. So, when a method needs a real entity, it should require an abstract entity to be passed in as an argument. If other methods which return abstract entity need to return a null value, they will return a null entity. So, if throughout the system we use null entities instead of nulls for this particular type, then we will not get null reference exceptions. Let's consider an example. Let's pretend that we build some kind of a caching system. Here we define the iCache storage interface with three members: remove, store, and retrieve. One of the useful implementations would be the HTTP context cache storage, which caches data in the HTTP context. And here is the null object cache, which implements the same caching interface. What this implementation does? It literally does nothing. Look at the possible client's code. What might have happened if the argument of the performWork method would have been null? Null reference exception would have been thrown from the attempt to retrieve an object. Now consider what will happen if we pass an instance of the null object cache class. Nothing. Literally nothing. Sometimes this is a really desired behavior, and in such cases this pattern provides a safety net. So remember, this pattern is useful when you know that there is a meaningful default behavior. Doing nothing is a meaningful behavior in certain cases. If this is inappropriate for some reason, then it might be better to stick with nulls or implement other strategies of avoiding nulls.